Hey guys, this is Henry from OBEDIA and PC Audio Labs again. Today we're back with our Cubase video tutorials. And on today's tutorial, we're going to learn how to quantize a MIDI performance in Cubase. So, I'm not a MIDI player. I'm not a piano player. I don't play synths. I don't really play any keys. So, quantizing MIDI is one of those things that, at least for me, is extremely useful. Especially when I'm producing and trying to lay some chords here and there. So I have recorded here. It's a very simple, it's just literally like 4 bars. I'm just playing whole notes, 4 different chords. And I was trying to record it with metronome. I'm gonna press play so that you can listen to how it sounded. So it's pretty obvious. I can't play to a click because, as I said, I don't play keys. So there are, I guess you could say, tempo problems here in the performance. It's not tight, right, to the grid. If you double click the actual MIDI event, you're going to see that the editor is going to open down here. And I think it's pretty obvious. You have your grid marks. You can see that it's kind of far from the actual grid mark where the notes start. And that's where quantize, or the quantization function, helps you. An actual keyboard or piano player would have been way more, I guess, tight to the grid than I am. But once again, we're going to learn how to fix that. So once you click on that MIDI event, you can go to Edit, and you have a Quantize panel. So let's go Edit, Quantize panel. And here's, this is the most important part, because the Quantize panel will tell us how to quantize this. So first thing is the grid. What's the grid that you're trying to quantize to? So what grid mark are you trying to get closer to? That's going to depend on your performance. I was playing whole notes. If I had been playing 8 notes or quarter notes, then you have to quantize to that. As a rule of thumb, general rule of thumb, you want to have your grid mark set to the smallest or the shortest note length that you played. In this case, they were all whole notes, so I'm going to go here to 1-1, which is a whole note. Check this out. When I do whole notes, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. You can see where the little white line tells you where the note is. If I go to, let's say, quarter notes, you see now you got 4. So 8 notes, you have 8, and so on and so forth. So whole note, you can see if you have 4 beats, it's literally just 1 green bar, right? It's a whole note, so it's 1 beat or 1 note per bar. If you go half note, you're gonna have 2. You go quarter note, you're gonna have 4. So just a little music theory right there. Now we said we're gonna be working with whole notes, so I'm just gonna leave it at whole notes. You have a swing pattern that basically, it's a factor, it's a percentage. You can quantize, but at the same time, you can kind of swing it in like a triplet or a dotted kind of fashion. You would use this if you're trying to quantize, but at the same time, trying to add a little bit of human error to the equation. Not what we're doing today, so I'm not gonna mess with the swing. You also have this here, the soft quantize on off. If you click on it, you can see there's a percentage, okay? If you just leave it without it, what's gonna happen is that once I press quantize, it's gonna take all of these notes, and it's gonna align the start of the notes to the nearest, in this case, whole note. Let's give it a shot. I go quantize, check this out. You can see that now they've moved, right? So the start of each note is now the whole note. So if I press play, it's perfect. Now I'm gonna Control Z that, so I'm gonna undo it. If you click on that mode, and you see that percentage, now you can tell Cubase how much do I want to, or how perfect do I want to get? How close to that grid mark that I've told Cubase do I want to get? If you go 100%, that's the same thing as turning off the soft quantize. You're going to go 100% there. If you go like 50%, so let's go 50 here, what's going to happen? Let's say we're talking about this note here. It's going to calculate the distance from that note to the grid mark. And it's going to put it 50% closer, meaning kind of like in a midpoint between where the note is and where the grid mark is. That, in fact, helps. It's not going to sound perfect, right? It's not going to be 100% there, but it's still going to have some human feel. So if you do 50%, you quantize, it's way closer, but you can still see some space. So if we press spacebar to listen,